Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Alex Rodriguez, all these guys, should they be voted into the Hall of Fame?
I draw the line with Bonds and Clemens on one side and A-Rod and Manny Ramirez on the other, because when we did have steroid testing and punishment for positive tests, A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, those guys knew the rules and they were suspended for PED violations. When there were no rules, baseball was looking the other way. MLB, the owners, were all complicit in everything that was going on. So to me, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, any of those guys before testing, they were the best of their generation, and they never had those positive tests, were never suspended. And I think you got to draw the line somewhere. That's where I draw it. So I voted for Bonds and Clemens. I have not voted for A-Rod, for Manny Ramirez, and other guys like that.
Too bad David Ortiz made it and made no sense because he's been caught with it. But,
Has he?
Yeah.
He did not have a positive test. He was in that survey test that was supposed to be anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know, the validity of all of that. For me, again, I voted for David Ortiz, just because he did not test positive. And so for that, I'm not going to play, the judge and jury.
I got
for
you.
me, it's cut and dried. If they did get positive tests, suspended, whatever, that's a disqualifier. If they didn't, then I can consider them on their merit.
It's so interesting because we've had so many ex-baseball players on this show, and we've had so many analysts, and a lot of these analysts and baseball players said that steroids should be allowed in baseball. It keeps them on the field. It keeps them healthy. This is what they get paid for. If they want to ruin their bodies, they want to beat up their bodies, that's up to them. That's why they make the millions and millions of dollars. That's why fans go in and pay to watch them play. So I'm one of the guys that believe steroids should be allowed in certain sports. Baseball, football, maybe hockey too. I mean, football maybe not, but baseball, hockey, basketball, if they want to do it. Really, I think all the four major sports except combat sports, boxing and MMA, I think that could kill somebody because you're punching somebody over and over and over and over again in the head. But everything else, I think it should be allowed. And a lot of the athletes that we've talked to, a lot of them, I'm talking, we've interviewed about 300 athletes. I would say about 250 of them said that they believe steroids should be allowed in sports.
I will take the one issue I will take on that is that we've seen a lot of times teams, I think NFL teams come to mind most, of forcing players to get back on the field before they're ready, and suffering career-ending injuries or things like that. I think if you opened it up to make all that plethora of steroid that we have available and legal, I think we'd end up having a lot of those players maybe out there when they shouldn't be. So unless they were tightly regulated or something like that, I don't know how we would do it. I would be a little bit leery of going that far.
Well, or the Mets when they bring back a pitcher 2 weeks early, too, and then they have Tommy John surgery.
Well, amphetamines have been around for forever, and everybody was doing that in those days, and that was cheating, but they're in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, you have to look at these things, and I think Bud Selig, who's in the Hall of Fame, for some reason, he was allowing all this to go on, and he's inducted, and we're still waiting for Mr. Steinbrenner to go to Hall of Fame because baseball doesn't like him. It doesn't make any sense. I believe George Steinbrenner saved baseball for what it was, in the transition years of the 80s and the 90s, and I just feel it's disrespectful how, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Yankee fan. I'm saying this because I'm a baseball fan, and I think that if you're going to let Bud Selig go into the Hall of Fame when he doesn't belong there, Mr. Car Salesman, then George Steinbrenner, who bought the Yankees for $10 million and turned the Yankees into a $7.5 billion organization and helped baseball with the Yes Network and changing, all the different values of how you can bring in money in so many different ways. George Steinbrenner transitioned everything. Professional sports. Look at football. Look at basketball. They all learned it from the New York Yankees, the Yes Network. So George Steinbrenner is a genius. He was always a genius. It's just a shame that he never gets the respect because everybody thinks that he bought his team in the 90s when he didn't. He built his team around youngsters and built around a veteran nucleus.